You will not catch me buying a printed pattern. They're pretty to look at, maybe nice to collect somewhere. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. And today I have something a little bit controversial to yap about. I have a sewing channel and I realized, I can yap about sewing over here, you know, different topic, something I've sprinkled every now and then saying, I'm not going to buy printed patterns. I don't buy printed patterns. I prefer PDF patterns 100%. I would not buy a printed pattern. It seems like it's a shocking statement to make based on the feedback that I've gotten from those little comments here and there. I know a lot of people like printed patterns and like collecting them and touching them and feeling them. But over the years, we start having preferences and just lifestyle and things that are all around us sort of influence the preferences that we have. And I can say for sure that I love PDF patterns with passion. I thought, why not yap about it? Maybe you're screaming at the screen saying, no, I don't like PDF patterns. Yeah, it's just fun to talk about these things. So no hate here. If you love your printed patterns, it's all good. We do what we like, and I'm just sharing what I like. Now, before we delve into the pros and the cons that I see with printed patterns, let me share what the Feature Friday pattern is over at Love Notions. Today, Friday, it's a pattern that has 3 versions for men, for kids, for ladies. The game day tee. Super cool. You have different neckline options. My favorite is the overlapped V right there. I know people do color blocking and sew it for their favorite sports teams. I've sewn these as pajamas for my son. I've sewn him an actual t-shirt that he wears a lot. I used contrast fabrics there in different types of black. I've done a really fancy one with a tie on the front that I love. And I have one that's black with red and gray color blocking that I use to go to the gym all the time. It's got a little red stripe here. So I've made quite a few here. Super nice. I haven't made any kids versions, but there is a kids version as well. All of these 3 game day tees are $6 today, Friday. So go have a look. Great value, lots of options, great sizing. And I already have content on this pattern on the channel if you want to have a look for some inspiration and tutorials. I'll leave you my affiliate link at the top of the comment section and in the description box. If you'd like to get it, it supports the work that I do here. You don't pay anything extra if you use my affiliate link. I just receive a small commission. If you use my link, I'm super great. So why do PDF patterns work better for me? I'm pretty impatient in life in general, and if I can have something now, I'm going to love that. So if there's a new pattern release from a certain brand, or I just see a product or whatever, I see something I like online, I can literally just buy that PDF pattern and have it in my computer in a couple of seconds. It means I can print it out, I can start reading the instructions, I can start planning for it. Like right now, that is up my alley 100%. One of the big pros here. Love that. There's no shipping cost. There's no waiting time. I don't need to spend time when creativity strikes and I'm sure I want to make a certain thing. It's just there right now. I love that. Instant gratification. Amazing. I find the storage really easy because it's digital. It's not taking up space until I actually make the pattern, whether it's right now or in a couple of days or whenever. I don't have them taking up physical space because they're all digital files. I have them in my computer in folders. I have a big folder called patterns, and within that folder, I have it by brands, and then within that folder, I have it by pattern. So for me, it's extremely easy to find and store that way. It doesn't take up any space. Also, when I eventually get to printing them out and everything, they're not like precious. Like I can cut into them, I can draw on them, I'm not going to be precious about how I store my printed pattern once I've already worked with it and made adjustments. I put them in a little plastic folder and into a big box they go. Nothing has to be really pretty or precious about how you store them. I can reprint these at any time. If I lose a piece or I wreck a piece, I could just go and see, I've lost the cuff piece, I'll just print that out again, no worries. If I want to make it for my mom in another size, just go ahead and print it in her size. If I've changed my own sizing, and I've had to do this actually, I just print it out again and it's always going to be there for me, and that is absolutely amazing. I love that about PDF patterns. Now, the big one here for me is travel. So I came over here. I didn't bring any patterns with me. I didn't even know what I was going to sew when I came here to the UK. But not having the stress about, what patterns to pack, like what patterns do I buy? No, there's zero stress. They're all in my computer. They're all right there. I can access them whenever I want. And it's the same when I go and stay with my parents in the summer. I go there and I stay 5, 6 weeks. It's a pretty longish time. I don't have to worry about carrying patterns around. They're all digital, so they're always with me. Amazing. This is one of the top tier reasons I love PDF patterns so much, especially the more modern ones, is the multi-layer function. So, if a pattern comes from size 0 to 40, and I just want to print size 12 and 14 because I have to blend sizes, I can go in there and just click on the sizes I want, and bam, there they are. Amazing. I've looked at printed patterns or older PDF patterns where you print and all the sizes are there. And let me tell you how overwhelming that is. It brings me back to the 90s when I was tracing Burda magazines, and there was a paper with like 1,000 lines and you were like trying to find your way around the size that you want, especially when a pattern has a lot of details like dots and marks and everything, and you've got like 100 sizes together. It's so easy to make a mistake and to get confused. I don't need to trace anything over here. I just print my size and I'm sweet. That is all. So this is one of the reasons I love PDF patterns so much. Now, sometimes I am disappointed when I find like an older pattern that doesn't have the layers option. Some brands haven't updated and used the layer option. When I see that, I'm like, oh no, it's like the doom and the gloom of the multi sizes again. So I'd say most of the time, I'm very happy with the layers function when it is there, because most of the time it is. With very older patterns, like 10 years that I made 10 years ago, the function wasn't there for some pattern companies. But for the ones that I'm sewing right now, I can choose my size, and that is a huge bonus for me. There's no visual overwhelm. It's just so nice to look at a page and have a few lines with just one or two sizes. Just the best thing. Now, what is another pro that I find with PDF patterns? And I mean, some of you might think it's a con, but for me, it's a pro. When I'm assembling the pattern, I'm looking at it obviously as I'm taping it together, which takes no time. But I'm actually reading what is on the pattern. A lot of pattern designers put a lot of helpful information there. It tells you how many pieces to cut, whether it's on the fold. You can start looking at the reference mark, the double notches on the sleeves. You can see the seam allowance, it's written there. You can see if it needs to be interfaced. So there's so many little things that I'm absorbing while I'm putting this together. And I see it as a process of learning the pattern. So when I have a printed pattern that's already there and I just start cutting it out, I feel like I've missed something, that I'm going to make a mistake because I haven't taken the time to just look at everything in detail, which is something I'll still do if the pattern's already there for me. But this process of taping it in a few minutes just helps me really learn the pattern. And I think it has a huge influence on how I tackle this and the good outcome, because I can see all the information there. I don't have to start scrambling and seeing, oh, what do I have to interface? Or what is the seam allowance? I'm already reading it with every single pattern piece that I assemble. So it's all going into my mind. And I think that's awesome. And so for me, putting it together is just part of it. It's relaxing, it's not stressful, and I don't mind. Now, what are the big cons about PDF patterns? I think these are all rational cons. I'm going to say what they are, but for me, they're not sort of cons. So I just mentioned that I really enjoy the printing and the taping process. For some people, that might be horrible. It might just be the most horrible thing you had to do. Print it out. Oh my gosh. If you print your pattern at home with a home printer, you buy your paper, the cost is very low. Let me tell you, sometimes my printer is, I've bought new cartridges, the full of ink that can last me for literally years, because I print on draft and light gray. And for each page you print, there's literally like 1 or 2 lines on it. So the amount of ink that you use is very small. I'm not trying to print in high quality here with like the best paper and like a lot of ink. Nah, you just need to see the lines. So draft, you can set these very little ink. And the tape, I buy it in bulk. I mean, the cost thing here I find is very low compared to sending out your pattern to a plotting company, the ones that print in A0, or buying a printed pattern if the pattern company offers both. So think of it as a con. In rationally, it's a con because this might upset a lot of people. The ink costs, as I mentioned, are very low. If you don't have a printer and you don't have ink, it might be a cost up front. I see it as another sewing tool, like having a machine and having things that help you sew. I think having a printer for me is a must. And then I'm sort of brainwashed into thinking every house has a printer because ever since I've got a reason to remember things, there has been one in my home since the 80s. Like there's always a printer in my house with my parents, married, whatever. I just can't live a life without a printer at home. So for me, it's okay. But I know for some people, it could be like, oh my gosh, I have no printer, So that's a barrier. Okay, there could be assembly errors. You could make a mistake putting your pattern piece together, maybe not understanding the instructions that the pattern designer has or how to tape it together. You might end up taping it wrong and the pattern piece is not fitting together. And I see quite a lot of posts about this online. Sometimes on Facebook, I see people asking, this doesn't match, and it's usually not setting it on the correct line, or you've set up your printer wrong and it's not printing the correct size. So, there are those issues around there with assembly, with printing, with human error and things like that with PDF patterns. I'm not going to say those things don't exist, but there's ways to get around it. And the more you do it, the less these issues start coming up. You learn how to put them together really easily, and then it's a non-issue. Another con could be the overwhelm of learning to do something. If you've never done this before and you've only had printed patterns in your whole sewing life, and you're like, what? It's a file on my computer. I have to buy a printer. I have to put it together. It might seem really overwhelming. So I'm going to admit that that is a con, of course, of PDF patterns. It's just something new, something different. And if you've never done it before, it's going to be really, really strange. So I'm not going to say that is not a con. So what are the pros of the printed pattern? It's all there. It's in a beautiful envelope. That is something that I can't say is something, not a pro. It's nice. You don't have any assembly or time to get it together or anything like that. It's all there. So that's a pro of printed patterns. I can't deny that. There's no printing involved. All the sizes are right there for you. And it's something pretty that you can collect. The price is higher. Now, it makes total sense. If a pattern designer offers PDF and printed patterns, the cost is always going to be much higher for the printed pattern because it is actually a physical product. Getting printed patterns made is very expensive. All the graphic, the design of the envelope and all of that, and the big paper that comes inside, it's a significant cost. So obviously it's going to be more expensive than the PDF pattern. So it's a higher cost. I would say that's a con because you still get the same pattern. And I don't place that much value on a bunch of paper. Then you have actual physical space to store it. You need to store it. You might not sew it today. You might sew it years from now. You're still going to have it somewhere taking up space. And I'm a minimalist-ish in my sewing room. I don't like having things around. I like emptiness. I like tidy spaces. And so, yeah, just the thought of having a place full of paper patterns, is just not my jam. Now, these patterns, because they have such a high cost, they could end up being super precious. And then you have to treat them as like a master pattern because all the sizes are there. So if you want to keep these for a long time, most people would not just cut into the pattern, cut their size, whatever. Most people would use tracing paper. So you have to buy tracing paper, put it on top and trace your size, cutting out. Let me tell you how much I dislike that. Oh my gosh, no way. I couldn't do it. I could not. I would rather just tape a PDF pattern than trace. I grew up tracing Burda patterns and other patterns, and it was so much visual overwhelm there. Have all the lines, trying not to make a mistake. In 2018, I traced McCall's pattern. I remember I made a mistake and I traced the wrong size for the bodice. I traced the correct size for the skirt, and it was one of my biggest sewing fails because the thing didn't even fit. And it was just so hard to see the lines correctly, and I made that mistake. I'm going to make mistakes like that if I trace. It's just too hard, and I find that really overwhelming. I know I wouldn't want to cut into a pattern that costed a lot of money. So treating it as a master pattern and being super precious about it is a con for me. If you're going to make pattern alterations and all of that, you probably are not going to do that with your master pattern. You're going to have to do that on your traced pattern. I don't like working with that flimsy paper. It's just so flimsy. So that's another thing. And I just find it more expensive overall because you ended up paying more for the physical product. You paid more for the shipping. You paid more for the tracing. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but you might like it. So I would say PDF patterns, there's a lot of chaos at the beginning, with the printing and the assembly. You make your pattern adjustments, but then it's all peace. It's just peaceful. You have your pattern. If you want, you can print it again. It's just all peace up here, peace in my mind that I don't have to store it. It's just a whole bunch of peace. Now, when you have a printed pattern, I think it's the other way around. You get the peace at first because, wow, the pattern's there. Ta-da! But then the chaos comes later because you have to treat it as a master pattern and get tracing paper and trace your size and then do your pattern adjustments. You have to store it somewhere. You have to pay more for it. So yeah, you see how I see it, the piece thing. So printed patterns aren't bad. I think they're pretty. When I went to Sewing for Pleasure in Birmingham and the Stitch Festival in London, they were everywhere. Everyone was flocking to them and they were buying them, and I saw all the brands and I looked at them and I'm like, yeah, all these brands have PDF patterns as well. They were all indie brands. I'm gonna just go with the PDF. Thank you very much. But I know a lot of people like them. I'm just stating my opinion and yapping about it because I thought it was fun to talk about. The PDF version removes a lot of friction in my life. It gives me a lot of peace. Even if I admit it's chaotic at first, there's a whole bunch of paper on the floor. Now, if I have bigger chunks of paper left over from cutting the shapes and things, I have a little basket of paper and I reuse that paper for pattern adjustments, when I have to lower darts or make the legs of pants longer, whatever. I'm always grabbing those papers and reusing them. So I use a lot of my paper. And then in my neighborhood, once a week, there's a truck that comes and collects paper recyclables. So I know that all that paper is going to be recycled anyway. So I feel fine about the paper usage and, it's not just going to go into the normal rubbish. It's going to be recycled in my own sewing and then off to recycling it goes. So I'd love to know what you think. That is what I want to know. I think the opinions are going to be divided and I think it's just got to do with your previous experience. I've used both. I've used printed patterns. I've used PDF patterns mostly. I have a few printed patterns that have been sent to me from pattern brands where I've done a pattern test. And so I've used the PDF version to make the pattern test and everything. And as a thank you, I've been sent by the mail the printed pattern. And they've been sent from different countries. They've taken months to reach me. And then I have them and I'm like, okay, that's nice. I'm never going to use it. I'm not going to open it up and trace. I would rather just use the PDF pattern. So that is my take, my hot take, my controversial take. I hope this was fun to watch. Please let me know what you think. I'd love to know. And that's it from me. See you soon. Bye.